poppin', B? Purpok here, and welcome back to another episode of Race the Ramen, the show where I attempt to review something unscripted in the amount of time it takes to boil an instant ramen. And today we'll be taking a look at Deadpool and Wolverine, showing now in theaters and on all your social media feeds. Alright, we're going to start the timer right now. Okay, so Deadpool and Wolverine. You know, it's only really just occurring to me now, have I ever reviewed a Marvel movie on this channel before? I'm pretty sure I haven't. If I have, someone remind me. But, weird place to start, right? I'm joining at a bit of a low point, I guess. Oh, we'll see, shall we? Deadpool and Wolverine. You probably don't need me to tell you what this is if you're clicking on a video about it, but in case you don't know, Deadpool and Wolverine is the third film in the, I guess, combination Disney MCU and Fox X-Men saga of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. God, there's a lot of qualifiers there. It's basically this entire franchise, isn't it? But yeah, I enjoyed the first two Deadpools. I hadn't rewatched the first one in years, basically since I'd seen it, I think. And revisiting it to watch Deadpool and Wolverine, I found that it aged quite a bit, obviously. But I still think the first one's pretty okay. I enjoy it. It's a teensy bit of a guilty pleasure, but for the most part, I think there's a solid human element there. And it's an okay, like, decently made movie. I didn't have time to rewatch Deadpool 2 before I went around to seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. I actually kind of hurried up going to see it because I kept seeing spoilers for this movie in, like, all my social media everywhere. And so I figured I'd better go and see it so I can have some of the surprises saved for me. Real quick before I get to anything else, can we please stop with this? Can we go back to, like, shaming people socially for, like, spoiling stuff when it's this big and this new? Like, entire scenes, huge character reveals, actor cameos. Like, no one can keep their mouth shut. No one tags their spoilers. Please, go back to tagging your spoilers and try and save other people's eyeballs from having the nice treats of the cameos and everything ruined for them before they go, okay? Please, for God's sake, just be a person. Anyway, that was a diversion that didn't have much to do with the overall structure of this review, but I guess that's keeping in tone with the movie we're talking about. I liked Deadpool and Wolverine, but I think just based on my memory, because again, I haven't had a chance to rewatch Deadpool 2 recently, I think I might like Deadpool 2 just a little bit more. I think that is my favorite, then the first, then this one. I don't think this movie's bad, but I think the bulk of enjoyment you're going to get from Deadpool and Wolverine is from a lot of the, like, cameos and, like, just all the little inside references that they're throwing out there in a way that's not as easily penetrable to audiences as, say, the new Spider-Verse movies, where there's a ton of stuff there for, like, you know, comic book fans and fans of the associated media, but you can be like a layperson, average general audience goer, and understand those movies on, like, an emotional and, like, plot-based level. This one, like Deadpool and Wolverine, I can't imagine how confusing this kind of movie would be to someone who keeps up with the MCU but doesn't know anything about, like, the Fox X-Men. Because there's so much in this that there's, like, throwbacks to, like, the original, like, X-Men trilogy and Logan and the Fantastic Four movies from the 2000s. Like, without going into, like, too far spoiler territory, because I really don't want to ruin a lot of the surprises for people if somehow they haven't been already. But they do some cool stuff with the ideas of characters we've forgotten and all these different universes colliding together. And it is cool to finally see Logan and Wade Wilson together and fucking each other up and almost fucking each other. No spoilers, though. And, I laughed, and I enjoyed some action and some nice set pieces that they deigned to put in front of me. But I'd say from just, like, a structural and, like, an emotional standpoint, I'd say this is the weakest Deadpool movie for me. Mainly because it's not especially about him. He was kind of tangential to the second movie's story too, but he was still essentially at the heart of it. Here, he feels more like just kind of there as an excuse to see everything around him. And I don't know, the whole thing could have probably been brought together structurally for me a lot better. Otherwise, it was bloody and violent, and they said the swear words pretty good. They made some decent jokes. And I'm gonna kind of miss, for all its flaws, these Deadpool movies being able to look in at the Disney MCU and take the piss out of itself. So, yeah, it's alright. Hopefully that gives you a decent impression of what I think of the movie. Again, I don't think I was quite as into this as some other people were. Maybe because I had a bunch of the surprises spoiled for me. Again, please bring back like tagging spoilers as a normal thing everyone does, and also maybe like talking among your friends instead of like posting about it on social media to discuss it for a while. I mean, seriously, please, God, can people just relearn that? Anyway, it was an enjoyable experience that I'm glad they got to make, while the MCU has been like gradually becoming less and less interesting to me, and it seems like most people. I feel like a lot of people after Guardians of the Galaxy 3 said they were done with Marvel. I think after this, after Deadpool and Wolverine, I think I really am done. Maybe I will occasionally check in on the MCU, but I'm not going to keep up with it in like any meaningful fashion anymore. Not that I really was much. And anyway. But yeah. It's a decent cap-off to this Deadpool trilogy, and it's a nice little farewell, not just to like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, I guess, in a kind of different way than Logan was. But it's a nice thank you and farewell to all of the X-Men movies that led up to this, and kind of the flops and the silly stuff of that similar dynasty that led us to the empire we live in now. So, you know, it's kind of sweet. Despite its flaws, I enjoyed it. Don't know if I'll like it as much on rewatch, but yeah. I give Deadpool and Wolverine a 6 out of 10. And if you're wondering why I so often go past the Ramen timer with description of the movie, I can give you a couple answers for that. 1, just assume I lost the race. 2, I like to think I'm letting the ramen cool. And 3, audiences are accustomed to long run times. So, I don't know. Just deal with it. What are you gonna do about it? This is my video.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And today we're taking a look at Thelma, showing now on demand. All right, we're going to start the timer right now. All right, okay, so Thelma. This is a really cute, sweet, little independent comedy movie that I saw in theaters a few weeks ago, back when it was still in theaters. I went to the last showing available in my area because showtimes ran thin kind of quick, and the premise alone intrigued me. If you've by chance seen The Beekeeper from earlier this year, starring Jason Statham, you may be familiar with its plot of basically a trained assassin being sent to take down a hacking group after they embezzle a bunch of money away from a sweet old lady. And that movie's not awful or anything, but it's not great. And when I heard the plot of Thelma, which is very similar but with a very important twist, I was much more intrigued. Because Thelma is a revenge comedy action movie starring a 93-year-old woman where she plays a grandma who gets scammed out of $10,000 and then goes out for revenge on her own. Her family won't help her get the money back, and they're starting to worry about her mental well-being now that she apparently can fall for a scheme like that. And she has to like kind of make a bid for her own autonomy at her age and go out and try and solve this problem herself. And honestly, I kind of love this movie. And I'm pairing it up here with Deadpool and Wolverine literally because I wanted to make a video titled Deadpool and Wolverine and Thelma, because I thought that was really funny. A lot of people have seen Deadpool and Wolverine, and not a ton of people have seen Thelma, so maybe they can make them piggyback off each other. Oh man, it'd be great if she showed up in Deadpool and Wolverine. Thelma, I need you to distract poor things. But anyway, unfortunately, the name of the main actress is like slipping my mind at this moment, and I'm very sorry. I'll put it up on screen right now. But she also happened to play Nostalgia in Inside Out too. So if you thought she was cute and wanted more of her, come see this. She really brings so much, just like empathy and like sweetness and like vulnerability to this role. It feels like very earnest and universal. Like if you have like any kind of decent relationship with your own grandparents, especially your grandmother, this character is going to remind you of your own grandparents a lot. I kid you not, in like the first 30 seconds before the title card even came up, I was in tears. I was like weeping. This is probably because I'm in an interesting spot with my own grandparents right now. I lost my grandfather earlier this year, and I haven't had a lot of chances to see my grandmother since then. And the opening where it's just her grandson helping her, June Squibb. I'm sorry, I think her name's June Squibb. If I'm wrong, I'll put the right one up on screen again. Her and her grandson just trying to like open an email, and that's already like cute and haha, oh, this is like me helping my grandparents. Then she opens up a little video of her late husband like singing karaoke. He's like, oh, there he is. And like, oh God, my heart just collapsed into dust. This movie just played peekaboo with my heart the entire time. The funny thing is, this movie's very funny. It's one of the better comedies I've seen this entire year. And it balances that tone like really well. It goes between like, oh no, she's in so much danger, she could like actually be seriously hurt if she fell like 2 feet. But then you're like laughing about it because she's laughing about it. It almost all relies on how like charismatic and naturally, like charismatic she is in this role and how naturally she takes to this role. And apparently she did most of her own stunts. Not that there's anything too crazy, but it is stuff that would be potentially risky to someone her age. And even maybe a little risky at times for people who were young. So just seeing that and seeing old people do things in this narrative about, you know, not letting go of your autonomy and just giving in to being, you know, a complacent sort of person in the background, if not a worrying you're a nuisance or something to somebody otherwise. I thought that was really cool. And then you have a great contrast with her character, basically like a buddy cop dynamic with Richard Roundtree, who you may know as the original Shaft. This was his last role, and I think he brings like a real tenderness and like poignancy to the character. And again, it contrasts really well with Thelma's character. I don't want to spoil it, but by the end it all works out pretty well, and despite the nature of the story, it's really sweet and kind and hopeful, and I think you should check it out. Hopefully that gives you a decent impression of what I think of the movie. I think Thelma's one of my favorite movies I've seen this year so far. It was sweet, it was well directed, it was very funny, very emotional in like an earnest and earned way. And certain scenes were like relatable in like a kind of like cringe comedy sort of way, but others are relatable in like a, oh, this reminds me of so many people in my family or someone I know kind of way. It doesn't feel manipulative to me. It doesn't feel like it has to rely on like if you love your grandparents or not. You could have like a terrible relationship with your grandparents or just not have ever known them, and I'm sure that you could find something to enjoy about this movie and this just well-told story with great actors playing great characters. The grandson's fun too. And he has a little arc with his parents, which kind of ties back into everything. It's like solidly written, solidly directed, presented, acted, and a little overlooked. Go watch the cool grandma revenge movie where the grandma gets to do it herself. I give Thelma an 8 out of 10. Again, I think it's really good, honestly. Damn solid. and you should give it a shot. Rent it. I think maybe it's in a few theaters still, but if it's not, you can rent it for like $10 or whatever. And yeah, I'd be happy to see more action movies with unique protagonists like this, or just more stories about, elderly people in general. Like a kind of a wider appeal movie where the character is elderly. You can still tell interesting stories with them. Sometimes they're not fit for it necessarily, but sometimes they are and we just don't let them. So let's let old people do things.
Did you ever imagine that at 94 years old, you'd be the star of a movie from beginning to end? I mean, not just somebody's mom or grandma, that you'd be doing this.
Jimmy, I have to admit, I never imagined 94 years old.